Line's good.
Never on.
Whoa.
Hard. Hardly.
Come on, Brent.
Line's good.
Got real close.
I hear high, right?
Try and hit 2/3.
Have they saved it for her? Yes, they have.
Welcome to Game of Stones, everybody. I am Sean Graham Scott, the hardest working man in curling podcasting. Joins us from the Leon's Center in Kingston. Hello, Scott.
Sean, what a day.
Yeah, big Saturday there in Kingston. Tiebreakers, the 3-4, the 1-2 game. Let's take this in chronological order of how it went down, Scott.
Start to finish?
Yeah.
Cool.
Right.
I got here about the about the 8th end this morning.
Okay.
Sleeping is hard.
Well, I'm stunned by that.
As talking is.
The 8th end is where one of the games ended, so let's start there. Of course, we had 4 teams tied for 4th place at this crazy 2020 Brier. One of the games, Team Canada, the defending champion, Kevin Koe, against Brad Jacobs and Northern Ontario, and this game ended in the 8th end with a steal of 3 for Northern Ontario. They win 8-3, up 5-3 playing that end, and I think, Scott, that really the 8th end is the key to this game, and it was really an example of where Kevin Koe was this week. They were not at the standard that we've seen them, right? Both he and BJ are at 77, 78% respectively in this game. Just a little bit off, and Koe on his last one is wide and rolls out for a steal of 3 here.
Yeah, just incredible, right? Like, not at all what you're expecting. I guess I must have lied because I was here to see this, so I probably arrived in the 6th or 7th, but it was one of those stunning situations where we're up here on the media bench and all of a sudden it's like, oh, that game's over?
Right.
I guess we have to figure out who to talk to. Like really uncharacteristic mistakes for Team Canada and Kevin Koe this week. He explained a bit after the game that, they just weren't sharp. It felt like they were always, one down or tied, near the end of the game. It wasn't, they didn't have many dominating victories.
Right.
And, the stress of playing all those close games takes its toll over the week. So, pretty uncharacteristic for these guys. Their cheering section was dismantled immediately. I took a picture of it the other day. All the Canada flags everywhere, and they were gone, cleaned out by the time the afternoon game started. So, tough week. These guys know who they are, though. For defending champions, I don't think we need to worry about them. They'll be back. Great players.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have it and sometimes you don't. And this week, for as good as they were, they just didn't have it. And that happens sometimes. Happens to the best of them. I mean, Kevin Koe, he's won 4, but, he's been to a lot more than 4. So, I mean, you're not going to win every time you go. So, just a week where they couldn't quite get to that level that we've seen them at before. And, for everything that was going wrong for Brad Jacobs early in the week, they were on a roll coming into the game. They continued to be on a roll. They all shot in the high 80s or low 90s, with the exception of Brad himself, who was down at 83. But overall, I mean, you outshoot Kevin Koe by 7 percentage points as a team for the game. You're going to win most of those games, I think, and it's one of those things where matchup-wise, I think if you're Canada, you probably would have preferred to play either Wildcard or Ontario in this game. But at the same time, you would have had to get through Northern Ontario anyway, so you might as well beat them.
Might as well beat them when you can. But, Northern Ontario, we'll get to them, I'm sure, playing like a bit of a buzzsaw towards the end of the week. So a tough matchup either way.
Yeah.
But, for a team that's struggling, not finding the precision shots, a tough matchup.
Absolutely. So after the game, Scott, you were able to talk to both Kevin Koe and Brad Jacobs in the media scrum area. So here's what the two of them had to say after that tiebreaker game.
Well, we faced some pretty tough times. This is right up there for sure, but we're just trying to take this thing one shot at a time and stay in the moment and enjoy this Brier journey. It's Saturday afternoon and we're still in it, and that's all we can ask for. Yeah, I think we still feel very confident. We're very well aware of our capabilities, and everybody's throwing the rock great and communicating well. I think everybody's very comfortable with the ice. The ice surface is awesome. It's going to make for a lot of great curling over the next 2 days here, and there's no excuses. The ice is awesome.
Got off to a decent start. I mean, that one of mine picked, we could have had a force early. Instead, we give up a deuce. But, we bounced back, got a deuce, and then got a force. So we're back where we need to be. But, we just weren't leading enough this week. It just seemed, we were always tied or one down. Those were the good games to keep it close. So it just didn't play good enough. And so, it's easy to, it was going to be tough for us to win in that form.
So Kevin Koe obviously sounding a little bit disappointed there. I think that's understandable, but also resigned. I mean, I think that's a very level-headed perspective that Kevin Koe had after that game.
Well, Sean, that's the thing about Kevin Koe, right? It's hard to tell when he's excited and when he's not. So you'd expect him to have a really measured response to how they played this week. So, yeah.
Yeah. So elsewhere on the ice this morning was Team Ontario against Wild Card and Mike McEwen and his team, and going down to the wire here, Scott. They exchanged deuces back and forth through the course of this game. Ontario gets two in the ninth end to take a 7-5 lead. Mike McEwen, though, Scott, has a shot to win the game on his last one. He has a double that is there to win. They are unable to make the shot, in part because they ran out of time. Mike McEwen on his last one was unable to go down to the house to look at it, right? He just had to be in the hack and throw. That is not a great position for him to be in.
No. Obviously, you'd like to have more time to reset on shots like that. You could say, was it a bad use of their time earlier in the game? I mean,
Yes.
Who knows, right?
No, the answer is yes.
The answer. Okay, the answer is yes. And yeah, for him to not have the time to really focus and throw it. When I talked to him after the game, he said he was just a bit soft on that release. It looked to me like he was narrow, but I was sort of off to the side during the shot, and I couldn't see exactly how much it missed the back one by. But you're right, it was there for three.
Yeah.
And for a team to have played so well all week, it was mentioned every one of their players was either first or second team All-Star. That's like a crushing way to go out in this event after you held your fate in your own hands, getting in 7-2 on Friday, and then dropping both of those games to be forced into this tie break.
Yeah, so you mentioned that he was that Mike McEwen mentioned afterwards he thought he was a little soft on it. You talked to him after the game, and here are his comments after the loss to Team Ontario.
How much did you miss that rock by? It looked like it was a putt towards the cup.
Yeah, I was at the other end. I'm not sure. It was probably not by much. A matter of, I don't know, quarter inch at the top.
When you released it, did you think you were a little narrow, or did you...
I was a little gentle with it. Yeah, didn't have much time to think.
Tell us about that, because there was no discussion. I mean, obviously the level was there, but you were already at the other end. What's that moment like?
I mean, it's not ideal. You don't have the same pre-shot and visualization as you would have liked. So yeah, it is what it is. It's not ideal circumstances to throw that type of shot.
So would you say the clock was a big factor then in the last end?
Well, for that shot, it was, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would be lying if I said it wasn't. So, I mean, sometimes you make them under those circumstances, and then you just shrug it off like it was nothing. But yeah, obviously a shot to win a game like that, I would have liked to have a few more, even another 20 seconds on the clock, so I could have had time to skate down and then throw it.
What's your impressions? What's your takeaway from this, Mike? I mean, you guys had a real good week. The numbers were good. Just a little bit of misfortune at the end of the week.
Yeah, we lost probably out of the losses. We lost 2 that really, should have gone our way and would have changed our week. Obviously, making the Final Four. So that was kind of tough to take that. But even though I had a shot to win there, I thought John and team outplayed us. There's no doubt about that. And I, personally, I was able to make some saviors to keep us in that game, and as it turned out, had one to win. But John's team played great there. We didn't capitalize on a couple opportunities to get us to 8-3 or whatever to straight in. That you probably, when you look back on it, you need some of those things to happen to have a really good week here.
You guys are always building. I know last year would have been maybe one step, and this is another step. I mean, the season isn't over, but how do you kind of rate the way things are progressing with this team in this 4-year cycle?
Yeah, like we're throwing some high numbers, as you mentioned. All of us were in the top 2 in our positions. We just, it's not always just about throwing up high numbers. There's some things we still got to clean up, but just, that part of our game was not there before, so that really bodes well. But, there's the finer things that we still biting us, because we're just not quite closing out a couple opportunities that when you're really clicking and things are fine-tuned, that I think that comes a little bit easier.
So, Scott, the one thing that I think is really interesting about what Mike McEwen said after that game is that they still had stuff to work on. And what I really noticed is in this type of situation, we talked about it last night with Saskatchewan to see how they would respond. Didn't quite think it'd be as much of an issue with this team, but again, that front end really likes to talk. And as impressed as I've been with Reid Carruthers, Scott, I think he is going to have to be the one to shut down these conversations early in the game, to not put Mike McEwen in this position late in the game. And not just Mike McEwen, the whole team was rushing late in the game. So if we can get to the point with this team where they're consistently efficient with their discussions. I mean, the first end, the second end, you don't need 5-minute discussions. And that's an exaggeration, of course. But, you can allow the skip to play their game, get into it, bank some time early, and that will allow more space for the discussion later. And I really do think this is going to come down to Reid Carruthers. This week was a massive improvement over last year for this team, not just in results, but in the dynamic on the team, the way they conducted themselves, the way they interacted. It was like 180 degrees. You could barely recognize that this was the same team that was wearing the Manitoba jerseys last year. I was dead wrong. I did not think that they would be able to do it, especially after what we saw in the Manitoba final. If they can continue that trajectory, that type of improvement in the team dynamic, they could win this event at some point.
Yeah, obviously they've got all the skills, right? And when we talked to Colin Hodgson earlier in the week, he talked about how Mike was in one of the best places he's ever seen him as a thrower, and Mike is one of the most talented throwers in the country. But as we heard Brad Gushu talk about a few years ago when you talked to him, the difference at this level is consistency of the skips. And right now, McEwen is not as consistent as he needs to be to, throughout an event like this, to reach the top of the podium. But the thing is, he recognizes it, they know it, and it's going to come sometime.
I think so. Yeah.
It sort of has to. They're kind of too good to not be able to put it together.
I mean, but I would have said that about the old Mike McEwen team, too.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you would have said that about the old guys, but I don't know, I I feel like this combination, there is some secret sauce there. There's some magic in it, but it is all about the headspace of Mike McEwen.
Yeah, and they have to keep getting better. They can't stop at this.
No. And, they've got a lot to learn, like you said. They're growing, and as long as the growth is still there, and they don't stagnate the way that his old team seemed to, I think the future is bright.
Yeah, I agree. They certainly are trending in the right direction. Now, of course, they didn't win because Team Ontario wins this game 7-6, and John Epping continues his run as the hometown team. And I don't know, like John Epping in this game at least, they didn't. It wasn't a feature game, but just giving up opportunities, right? If you contrast it to say how Brad Gushu played up to without the hammer in the 10th end, like Northern Ontario never had a sniff, whereas here this morning, John Epping, like there's a shot for Mike McEwen to win, and it just, these are those little things that continue to come up with John Epping that has prevented him from winning the big one in the past. It's just these little things here and there that come up, and you're like, really, John Epping? And that 10th end, I think, was one of them for me.
Yeah, for sure. They didn't play that well. It wasn't clean at all. John Epping is either the best skip in the world or a very mediocre skip. I don't think there's a lot of in between with the way that he plays. When we talked when Ryan Fry decided to join the team, whether he would be able to steady that John Epping sort of up and down. And to a degree, I think the lows aren't quite as low, although we did see a 50% something game this week. But yeah, for right now, like we talked about with Mike McEwen, the consistency's not there. And I think for this Team Ontario, first year together as a team, won the Canada Cup, shorter event, come here, they have their ups and downs. I mean, they won their first 3 and then dropped 3.
Yeah.
And then makes a big run to get into the tiebreak scenario. It's sort of like, which team is this exactly? And I think they're still searching for that as well.
Yeah, I agree that it'll take a while for them to truly figure it out. They had a good run through the championship pool, as you said, going 3-1 in games that they needed to win. So, no real criticism there. Where you can be critical is those middle 3 that they lost, right? So the game to New Brunswick is the big one that stands out, losing to Saskatchewan and wildcard as well. But just an interesting, always interesting path for John Epping throughout his career whenever he's in one of these events. Now, you had a chance to get in and talk to him after this morning's game as well. So let's hear what John Epping had to say.
Is this kind of your toughest, daunting challenge of your career so far?
Oh, yeah, for sure. But you know what? We're just enjoying every second of it and getting a chance to keep playing in front of the home crowd. What a good draw out there for a tiebreaker game. Morning, 9 a.m.
I'm surprised we were to see Mike Randall miss that last one.
Yeah, shocking for sure, but he was really low on time. He was already in the hack rated throw, and that probably affected him a bit. But, definitely surprised.
You guys played well from start to finish today. There wasn't not many misses out there.
Yeah, we definitely controlled the game, and we were, we definitely felt like we controlled the game out there.
All right, so a very upbeat John Epping after the morning draw, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's not the way that you want to win, but win's a win, and you take what you can get, right?
Yes, so after the morning draw, we were down to 6 teams. As Wildcard and Canada could pack their bags, they were done. In the afternoon, a bit of a change with the normal schedule would be. Typically, we would have the 3-4 page playoff game, but no, we couldn't do that because we didn't know who the 4 was going to be. So, Northern Ontario played in the third tiebreaker as Saskatchewan and Alberta played in the 1-2 game. I think TSN made the absolute right decision to have the 1-2 game be the feature game.
Oh, really, Sean?
Yeah, no question.
Okay. Interesting opinion. I don't think it was shared by many on Twitter.
Yeah, I was surprised by that because whoever wins this game is in the final. You have to see how people make it to the final.
I suppose, yes.
You can't just be
yes,
like, oh,
that's
somebody's
fair.
in the final. How'd they get there? I don't know. Right?
Yeah.
Whoever wins
but
the other
one's
one, you're
an
going to see
elimination,
later.
right? Well, one's an elimination game.
Yeah.
So?
Yeah,
okay. So that's your opinion, which was shared by a few people, I think. If you want to start there, Matt Dunstone didn't make enough shots to bail his team out, and they lost.
Yeah, I think the one of the notes I took during this game was during that sixth end where at this point it's 3-1. Matt Dunstone has a double for 2. And it's interesting. He goes down to the hack. He's in the hack. He asks for more ice in the hack. Muscowie gives him more ice right out of his hand. They were pounding it the whole way. Sort of a nose double, sort of run back double. It overcurls and it stuffs. So the one he raises back hits the other Alberta stone and just stays right there. The shooter rolls away. It's a hit for one. Or a steal of one, excuse me. I was really surprised that he missed it that way, Scott, especially because he asked for more ice. And it wasn't a line situation, like a line call situation right out of his hand. They were screaming.
He was narrow.
He clearly missed this one in a way that we haven't seen him miss all week.
No. And I was sitting right behind the sheet that this was on, Sean, and as he slid out, you could see, oh yeah, he's narrow. And just like the absolute worst way to hit it. Not what you want to see, especially in a situation where they had the chance to tie right there. And it wasn't like Alberta, it blew them out of the water. They didn't have their best stuff today either, I didn't think. So a real missed opportunity for Dunstone there. And again, like we look at the shooting percentages, but what really comes down to is when you miss versus the number of misses that you have. So, some misses at unfortunate times there, and we saw it again, sort of missing his last, and I think Alberta got a count of 4.
Yes.
With Hammer, but to their credit, right, they did scratch back and get to within 1 point in the last end.
I don't know. So I was really curious about how Brendan Botcher played the ninth end.
Mm-hmm.
At this point or at that point of the game, he's up 5-2, and Saskatchewan has the hammer. Brendan Botcher was very defensive, playing. Also in the eighth end, I thought they were extremely defensive, just making sure that they could score. Peeling stuff out front, not wanting to mix it up at all. Same thing in the ninth end. He was super defensive, right? He was more than happy to give Team Saskatchewan 2 points in the ninth end and play the 10th end one up coming home. So with the hammer, and I don't know how much of the 2 is crediting Saskatchewan so much as it is Alberta not willing to engage at all and saying, take the 2, we're not going to give you any sniff at a 3. And that I understand the decision. It makes a lot of sense. If you're up 1 with the hammer playing the 10th end, you're going to win something like 98% of the time. And so I totally get it. But if I'm Matt Dunstone and Team Saskatchewan looking at this, I don't know how much that 2 was a product of us putting pressure on them so much as it was Alberta playing the scoreboard.
Yeah, that's a really fair comment to make. It did seem from here that Brendan Botcher wanted no part of trying to play something delicate to force. It was very happy to, okay, fine, have your 2, we'll have hammer, no big deal.
Yeah.
And they made it work.
Yeah, they sure did.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with that, Team Alberta gets in to the final, 3rd straight final, Scott, for Brendan Botcher. This will be the first time not playing in the semifinal, though.
Yeah. Yeah, they will avoid the fate of having to play in the semifinals. So maybe that extra rest will be just the difference they need to prevail in this one as opposed to the last couple of years. But before that, they're going to have to watch the semifinal to see who they'll face. And one of those participants, Saskatchewan, we talked about, but the other was decided tonight in a game, Sean, that I will describe as the game of the year so far.
Yeah.
It was
really good. Well, we didn't talk about the other tiebreaker at all. Was there anything from the other tiebreaker before we get to tonight?
What other tiebreaker did we not talk about?
We didn't talk about Ontario, Northern Ontario.
No, this was a case of where John Epping, it was the not as good John Epping. Right? And Northern Ontario got multiples with the hammer, and Epping wasn't able to. They brought in John Morris for the 8th end, which I thought was pretty cool. I sort of saw, after they gave up the 2 and 6, you saw Fry sort of talking to John, saying like, "Oh, you'll come in for me," and I was like, "Oh, he's gonna have a John Morris sighting." And then I see he goes back, he comes back, he's got his curling shoes on, and I'm like, "Oh boy, this is gonna happen." So at that point, I figure they've decided like they're not going to win this game, which fair enough. And then they get they get their single in 7. They have to play 8 ends. So Morris comes in for the 8th, gets a big round of applause from the crowd. Then they like accidentally steal one.
That was the best part.
Like I guess we have to keep going because it's only 2 points now, and So I got a lot of questions about people saying, "Oh, what's wrong with Ryan Fry? Why is he out?" And my answer was, he's out because they're done. Like,
right.
I saw him run under and eat a quick donut. And everyone's like, "Oh, good enough, you're done." He's like, "Yeah, I get to eat a donut now." And it was a really fun experience for me. John Morris being one of my favorite players. And I went down and I talked to him a little bit, not really about him playing in the game today, but a bit about, playing in Ontario, being from here, and what that's all about.
Going there. First time wearing the Ontario jacket back at a Brier since 2002. How did stepping on the ice with the home crowd make you feel that?
You know what? I think this is the best Ontario Brier I've ever been at. Just pretty much a packed house all week, and great energy in there. And Kingston's just an awesome town, and they really displayed it this week. And I was really proud to be part of it.
Right on. A lot of guys making a lot of shots out there. This Northern Ontario team, you know them. You've been around, you've seen them play. What do you think their chances are moving forward?
Yeah, well, they were pretty much the favorites coming in to the week, and they kind of struggled out of the gate. Just were on the wrong side of the inch a few times there. And, I think they've got just as good a chance as any. I've played against Brad numerous times where he doesn't even come close to missing a shot, and he showed he has some special shots in the repertoire like he showed against us tonight. That angle raise for 3 was pretty much a game changer for that game. So yeah, I think that I'd put him right up there with anyone else left in this spiel, and it should be a good show to the finisher.
And real quick, how did you get hooked up with this team? I know they put on Twitter, "Hey, guess who our 5th's going to be?" And everybody guessed you right away. So
you know what? I've been friends with I played juniors with Brent, and have a long history with him, and played against Fry many years. We've also been good friends on tour, and have nothing but lots of respect for Matt Cam and John Epping, and it's just and the fact that the Brier was in Kingston. I knew it was kind of close to home. I'm from Ottawa, and I knew that it was going to be. I watched the Scotties here when Rachel was here, and it just seemed like just an awesome event. So it was one of those Briers that if I have the opportunity to be part of it, I was going to do that, and especially if I could help these guys in any way, hopefully win a Brier. Wasn't the case this week, but I think those guys got a lot of wins left in them. So.
All right, so there's John Morris after his appearance this afternoon in the tiebreaker game. Again, Northern Ontario eliminates Ontario, and with that, Scott, we were down to 4.
Oh, it seems like we'd come so far. yet still had so far to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier, I think it's the game of the year. Notwithstanding the fact that these two teams played Monday night.
Yeah, wasn't their game Monday bad? I think their game Monday. Now, okay, I didn't see a lot of it. I saw the first half, and then I was convalescing for the second half. But I don't know. I mean, this game was great. Don't get me wrong, this game was great. But the first two ends of Monday were like bonkos.
But I think that's where you balance the bonkosness of it. That's a word. Tonight was just so well played that it seemed like both teams were really in a zone. Northern Ontario playing their third game of the day, like a near impossible situation for most teams.
Yep.
These guys are, of course, probably in the best shape of any team out on tour. But, they were going shot for shot, and it was sort of like anything you can do, I can do better. Really, really even game. And the force of Brad Gushue in the 8th was some pretty spectacular stuff.
Yep.
And just as spectacular as that was, the miss in the 9th to give him the steal was pretty bad. He just sort of got it going and couldn't get held by the sweepers. So
yeah, I think too. So I wrote down the end that I was the most interested by was the 5th end, where it's 2-2 at this point. Newfoundland has the hammer, and Mark Kennedy tries a shot, a thin double with two that are sort of on the right side, just outside. One's in the sort of top 8 foot around the 230 position, and then one right on the tee line, sort of right behind it to the left a little bit, basically at the 3 o'clock position. And then one of the Harnden brothers says, if you play that thin double, it might roll over and get the stone that is at 9 o'clock as well.
Mm-hmm.
And he whips it, and he almost made it.
It was so close.
That I was so impressed by that shot, by that attempt of it, especially because Mark Kennedy started to do a fist pump and then had to kind of stop when they didn't get the rock at 9 o'clock. But then on his second one, he plays a perfect corner freeze. And then Mark Nichols plays a perfect corner freeze right back, which allows Newfoundland and Labrador to get the 2 there. But I was so impressed by the play of the 2/3 in that 5th end that the first 4 ends were they were feeling each other out, a little defensive, a little hesitant to mix it up. But that 5th end, I thought that's when the game really got going.
Yeah, that was sort of, you're right. I tweeted that it was a bit cat and mouse at the beginning. Both skips having to make good shots. But yeah, that 5th end, you're right. Those freezes were just incredible. And I don't know. It was very fun to be here in person to watch that.
Yeah, and then the 7th end too. I will say the 7th end was one of the better blanks I've seen.
Oh yeah.
They were playing out. They were playing freezes that were biting the outside edge of the 12-foot.
And it was 6 feet of curl. Just incredible skill, incredible touch, great brushing. All of the skill, everything was on display there tonight. I picked Northern Ontario to win at the start of this event. I think I was not alone in that assumption. They were one of the favorites, as John Morris just said there. And I think they put themselves in a little bit too much trouble, both earlier in the week and at times yesterday and today. Yeah. And that was the difference, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, but you have a tough time. I think that in that 9th end where they were set up to score 3, they really were.
Yeah.
And Brad Gushue on his last one, they called the timeout pretty much to see if they were second shot or not, and they decided, well, it doesn't matter. We're playing the same thing regardless. And he plays a beautiful hit and roll on a stone that's just behind the tee line, just sort of around 8 o'clock, and makes a perfect roll.
Yeah, incredible. Like, he'd tried it on his first, and they'd overswept it, and this one, no mistake. Like, you can't give him the same shot twice, I guess. But, yeah, like, just watching him make that shot and seeing him sort of from the hack end here, because that was the ninth end, and he's sort of like, yeah, like giving his fist pump and
then he
doing
ran
his
the
sort of celebration. And then, yeah, like, we saw this earlier today, too. I think Brad Thiessen went to pee or something, and it was his turn to throw, and he was not there. So they had to wait for him. Yeah, weird thing about curling, eh? Like, you could drink so much water, I guess you have to pee.
Yeah.
But, yeah, when he made that shot, he knew. He knew he had it.
Right.
So, just great.
Yeah, really impressive. And then same thing in the 10th end, where he plays a rock on his last one. He's playing out to the 12 foot. He's playing on the outside of a corner guard to hit and roll on third shot rock. And
yeah, I tweeted, John. I thought it was conceding a 2.
So did I.
No. Yeah, right?
But he makes a perfect roll, and Jacobs doesn't have a chance.
No. And Jacobs couldn't throw too hard on that thin attempt because he needed his rock to stay, but he also had to get the opponent's rocks out. And nearly impossible shot. So, with that, Sean, Newfoundland books their place into the semifinal.
Yeah. But I do want to say, too, I mean, great shot making by Newfoundland and Labrador at the end there. You could see how tired Northern Ontario was, too. E.J. Harnden a couple times just backed off shots when he was sweeping, and you could hear Kennedy and Jacobs be like, no, stay with it. Ryan Harnden at the end, too. There was one that he went post to post. I think Jacobs last or second to last one. And you could just tell that, like, there wasn't much left there. I mean, full credit to them to make this game close. Honestly, when I went to bed last night, I would have thought that, if I was setting a plus or sort of a point spread, I would have put Newfoundland and Labrador by like 4.5 on this, just regardless of who it was, just because it's so hard to get into that game and to be fresh. It's 9 hours of curling over the course of 13 hours today. That is just incredibly difficult. If it was like a fun spiel, forget about all the mental energy that is spent trying to figure out the angles and the paths and everything else that goes on with this. Full credit to Northern Ontario for keeping this game close and having a chance at all.
Yeah. Full credit, like you said. Tired is one thing. There's the mentally tired part of it. There's also like those sweepers. They give it their all every time, and I know they train a lot. They're very in shape, but 10 ends of curling 3 times, your arms are about ready to fall off after that.
Yes. So certainly they're probably in the patch right now.
Well, I saw a lot of their kids hanging around, so there was a lot of I got to go see my kid, and then the kids would go, oh, Daddy, and run up, and it was really sweet.
And then they tried to pick him up, but they couldn't because their arms were done.
Yeah, so some quality time with the family, I'm sure, tonight.
Yes, they've certainly earned that. But yes, so Newfoundland and Labrador and Brad Gushue move on. They will play Saskatchewan tomorrow in the semifinal at noon Eastern Daylight Time.
Yeah.
So do you think, Scott, this gives Newfoundland an advantage because they're used to changing the clocks?
Sure. I think that Newfoundland Labrador,
they don't do it. They might be like, right. What? We have to change the clock. What is this madness?
Yeah, okay. Plus Newfoundland Labrador, every time they leave their province, they're changing their watch by half an hour.
Yeah.
So a lot of time changing for the Newfoundland Labrador team. Newfoundland, sorry, I should say it properly. I got to give Brad Gushue the advantage. Saskatchewan today, playing the 1-2 game, usually that would be a single sheeter, and you don't know how the Dunstone team would respond to playing single sheet.
Right.
Some experience with it, obviously, but not at an event like this. Brad Gushue, tons of experience with it. So I just have to give them the advantage going into this game. And I don't think I'm alone in that sort of prediction. The crowd is also quite pro Gushue.
Yes.
Which we see everywhere.
We do.
So yeah, just based on all that, I'm going to give the edge to Newfoundland Labrador.
Yeah,
Labrador.
I think I'm with you on that. That they'd certainly be the favorite going into this game. Championship Sunday out of Brier, first time for Dunstone to be in this position. It'll be very interesting to see how they react to it, how they come out, respond. I do think, Scott, though, having the schedule change and having the 1-2 game be this afternoon might help them. Gives them more time to come down off that loss. Kingsbury's there; he's been so positive all week. Give them a chance. Have probably had a nice meal tonight as a team, a chance to relax and really reset. Whereas normally you would lose and then try to pretty much have to try to get to bed to get to sleep because you're playing earlier the next day. So that schedule change might give them a bit of a break compared to what they normally would have been or normally would have had. But yeah, definitely Gushue is going to be the favorite going into that game. But as we've seen all week, just don't give Dunstone a shot in the 10th. If you're Brad Gushue, just don't give him that.
Yeah, I think that's the way that Saskatchewan wins, is that Dunstone comes up with one or two big shots to bail his team out. So, if he's able to do that, then look out, we might have a game.
Absolutely. And then, of course, the winner will go on to play Brendan Botcher and Team Alberta in the final at 7 o'clock Sunday night, live from Kingston. It's going to be a beauty.
But really 6 o'clock. So,
7 o'clock daylight time.
Yeah.
So the Curling Canada website is wrong. It says all times are in EST.
Oh, dear.
But tomorrow, that's not the case.
That's not the case, no. So my plan tomorrow is to be here in the arena for the semifinal. Depending how everything goes, likely we'll get on the road, make it back to Ottawa, so we can watch the final together on TV and be able to drop some reactions instantly after the game.
Yes, so that will be the plan for tomorrow. That Scott will be in the arena tweeting up a storm as he's been doing all day today during that semifinal game. And then
am I doing too much, Sean? Too much tweeting?
As long as you don't get us in Twitter jail, then we're good.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. I think we need to get some retweets from Jill Officer, who follows us. She's given some likes to some of our tweets, which is cool.
That's good.
But yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun. I also saw Mary and Lori today from the Two Girls in a Game. So she wanted. Lori said, "Oh, I didn't change my mind in the hack for that shot during the Scotties there," and I said, "Okay, I'll issue a retraction." But I think that she said, "Oh no, like that was the shot all the way." So
okay,
my bad.
Hey, sometimes that happens.
Yeah, but they're pretty popular around here, so any FaceTime I get is an extra bonus,
Yeah. We're certainly we haven't made it to that level yet, Scott.
Oh, I don't know if we ever will, Sean. They're rock stars over here. So
they really are. They really are.
Good times for everybody here at the event so far today. I've seen some. I hear there's some Fergus Curling Club folks in the patch right now, so I might go stop by and try to say hi. But my bed is calling, Sean.
All right. Well, Scott, you've certainly earned it. Earned a drink and earned a good night rest. But, of course, everyone, I'm going to have to sleep fast because we're losing an hour.
That's right. We'll be back here in the arena in no time.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get it back in, November.
Cool. Just when I need more sleep.
Yeah, right when it's nice and time to go to, really cocoon yourself for the winter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For the hibernation season, we'll get it back. But yeah, so of course, if you are pretty much everywhere other than Saskatchewan, Scott, does anyone else not do it across the country?
There are some parts of BC that don't change, that go between Pacific and Mountain Time. And Yukon tomorrow will be their last time changes. They're shifting the clock forward, and then we'll stay on Mountain Standard Time.
Wow.
When the clocks reverse back.
Okay. Wow, big day in Yukon.
Yeah, last clock change.
Exciting stuff. So, so if you are somewhere where you're changing the clocks, don't forget the games will be on an hour earlier tomorrow, noon Eastern Daylight Time tomorrow and 7 p.m. tomorrow night for Championship Sunday at the Brier. And, of course, we'll be there with you the whole way tomorrow night after that final, talking about all the goings-on from Sunday. And Scott will be there in person for the semifinal at least. So do follow along on social media at Game of Stones Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Scott's there at Scott Likes TV. I'm at Dr. Shawnee Fever. And, of course, you can email the show, gameofstonespodcast@gmail.com. And please do subscribe to the show if you have not yet on Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, all the places. Give us the likes, ratings. Keeps the show going. Lets other people know that it's there. So, Scott, well done today. Go have a drink, buddy. Get some sleep. And we will talk to you tomorrow night.
See you then.
And for everyone else out there, thanks for listening. We'll be with you tomorrow night. But until then, enjoy Championship Sunday. And keep your brooms on the ice and don't dump that intern.
Make the final.